Officials in the US and Ukraine have indicated that Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 was shot down.
Sebanyak 280 penumpang dan 15 kru dilaporkan terkorban dalam insiden ini.
This is a tragic day in what has already been a tragic year for Malaysia.
Malaysians wake up to devastating news. A Malaysia Airlines flight has crashed. On board were 298 passengers, including 43 Malaysians. The news comes just 3 months after the mysterious disappearance of MH370 in March. Information is scarce, but Malaysia quickly assembles a team of forensic officers to assist in the investigation. Among them is Detective Sergeant Mohan.
I was not sleeping because I just finished duty last night 24 hours. So I was sleeping around 10:30. My boss called me and informed me that get prepared, we have to go leave to Ukraine for air crash investigation.
The team gathers at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, where personnel from more agencies are also waiting to move out. The sudden nature of the event has officers scrambling to make logistical arrangements.
I have no idea if it's in the charter airline, but I have no idea. You're going to check in now, then you know what airlines are going aboard.
To make things worse, the crash site is in the middle of a conflict zone. Heavy fighting between Ukrainian forces and armed separatists makes getting information much harder.
Dan ini perkembangan seterusnya, salah seorang saksi yang juga anggota pemisah pro-Rusia memberitahu.
Nahas berlaku di sebuah kampung yang dikuasai anggota pemisah pro-Rusia. Visual menggambarkan beberapa bahagian pesawat terpisah sebelum jatuh.
The lack of information makes planning impossible. Officers must be prepared for every possibility.
We do bring all our equipments lah. Kita punya documentation apa untuk tagging, labeling, everything we have. It's all in the box. If you see a lot of boxes there, it's all in the box. We do bring all the fingerprints kit also in order to get fingerprint from the body if we recover anybody from the scene. Now I cannot say much. Once we reach there, we will know what to do. We have to see the place, how safe the place, how big the area. Are we going to visit the scene or not? I'm not sure. We have to see the place first, whether it's secured or not. There's so many things to observe before we go and plan. Once we see, only we can plan.
News on the tense situation at the crash site continues to trickle in.
The United Nations estimates 230,000 people have left their homes in eastern Ukraine because of the fighting. Any escalation in the conflict will be of concern to investigators trying to figure out what brought Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 down over the region and could complicate efforts to recover what's left of the plane.
As fresh details are confirmed, the mission takes a grim turn. There are no survivors on board Malaysia Airlines Flight 17.
We're not going to do the crime scene investigation. We are doing DVI exercise to identify the body, especially for the Malaysian, to identify the Malaysian victims.
20 hours after the reported downing of Flight 17, the Malaysian police forensics personnel are ready to depart. They have an important mission: to recover and identify the victims so that they can be brought home to their families. However, 5,000 miles from home, the Malaysian forensic team is on the Flight 17 crash recovery mission. They face some bleak news in Ukraine.
There are reports of fighting near the crash site. Now, it is a very large site, but this delay in deploying investigators clearly a blow to the investigation as to what brought this plane down.
Detective Sergeant Mohan is one of the forensic team members deployed as part of the disaster victim identification delegation to the crash site. The rising tensions between the Ukrainian military and separatist groups are hindering their recovery mission.
Actually, we can't enter because the heavy fighting going on. The place is not secured. There's no guarantee for our safety there. So that's the instruction we received from our other counterpart, that's the Dutch, that we are not allowed to enter. They are still negotiating with both parties.
With the chaos of the armed conflict, the chances of accessing the crash site look bleak. The team can only wait and hope they will be able to assist in getting the victims' bodies home soon. This is one of the most challenging missions for the Royal Malaysian Police. All eyes are on the situation in eastern Ukraine.
Baik, kami mulakan dengan kumpulan pemisah di timur Ukraine telah pun menyerahkan 2 kotak hitam pesawat MH17 yang ditembak jatuh pada 17 Julai lepas, dan 2 kotak hitam itu diserahkan kepada pakar Malaysia dalam satu pertemuan khas di bandar Donetsk.
The airplane's black box contains crucial evidence for the investigators. There is also a silver lining for the recovery team. The rebels also agreed to send some of the recovered bodies to Kharkiv, some 300 kilometers from the crash site. The Malaysian Disaster Victim Identification, or DVI team, deployed to Kharkiv immediately.
Our task is to identify disaster victims, but once reached there, we have a different task to do. That is, we have to process the bodies. We call it a transit facilities plant. Then we have to process the body by tagging, photographing, documentation, and X-ray. This is a procedure set by this international team that's led by the Dutch teams.
As the Malaysian team processes the bodies in Kharkiv, their international counterparts continue to negotiate access to the crash site. Three weeks after the first group of forensic officers were sent to Ukraine, the Royal Malaysian Police gather in Kuala Lumpur International Airport to welcome them home. There were concerns for the team's safety due to heavy fighting near the crash site, but all the officers are accounted for and have returned home safely. The forensic officers are happy to be reunited with their loved ones. But for the families of the victims, their waiting continues. It is now up to the remaining forensic officers in Ukraine to bring the bodies of Flight MH17 victims home to their families and friends. By 21st of August 2014, 30 of the 43 Malaysians on board have been identified.
Berakhirnya satu penantian selepas lebih sebulan kita semua menunggu 20 jenazah mangsa nahas MH17 akhirnya kembali ke pangkuan keluarga masing-masing.
On the 22nd of August, more than a month after the plane had been shot down, a specially chartered flight arrives from Ukraine. Sergeant Mohan hopes that their work in the Ukraine will bring some closure to the victims' families.
Yes, our main task is to identify the victims and recover more bodies and the personal belongings of the victims to be sent to the families to have a proper funeral arrangement. Then we are happy to do that on behalf of this family. And I'm so sad, and it's because this happened in a tragic manner.